Is the word nerd actually in your show's name?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it is. Yeah, so the Nerd Radio Podcast.
This is. I'm all in.
Yeah, we got all sorts of.
As long as you want.
Awesome. We've got so many crazy topics that we talk about. I mean, comic books, video games, TV shows, movies. We'll talk about stuff like space when something new happens. So you're a perfect fit for the podcast.
I'm all in. And do you know I was actually in a Superman comic? Did you know this?
You know what? That does ring a bell.
Okay, so Action Comics 14, when they sort of reinvigorated the Action Comics series, Superman visits New York City, the Hayden Planetarium, where I'm director, and I help him see the destruction of his home planet because the light only would just now be reaching, given how old he is, given his age. He's apparently eternally in his late 20s, as the people at DC Comics alerted me. 30's over the hill, so he's in his late 20s.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. And so I showed him the light. I brought together telescopes that could have the power to see this. And then there's a sad moment where he sees he knows intellectually his planet is not there.
Yeah.
But to actually see the visual evidence of it. And there's a moment where his head is bowed down. Yeah, and he looks sad. And I said, "Do we ever see a sad Superman? That's interesting."
That is interesting.
So this is my participation in the comic book genre.
Yeah.
Although I can't claim to have ever been a big comic book fan. I just wait for the movies to come out.
Well, it's interesting that you're in a comic book. How involved were you in your appearance in a comic book?
Well, that's the perfect right question. So I'm in my office because I'm director of the Hayden Planetarium in New York City, and I get a phone call. He says, "Oh, this is DC Comics. Can I speak with Dr. Tyson?" I said, "Speaking." And they said, "Well, we have a question for you. We'd like your permission to have Superman visit the Hayden Planetarium." And I said, "Yeah, okay, so what you think I'm going to say no to that?"
Right, yeah.
And so I said, "What's up?" And they described this scenario to me that the planetarium is a resource of observations and data and the sky, and they wanted to create this moment where the light from the destroyed planet is finally reaching. And I said, sure. And they just need my permission to draw the planetarium. And then like a minute goes by and they said, "Do you mind if we represent you?"
Again, no way. Of course not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like, do you expect a no to that answer? What is this? And so I said, sure. And so I'm actually interacting with Superman in this comic, so that when I tell people I'll go to a convention or something, I say, I actually met Superman. It's, "Oh, which one?" Christopher Reeves, or who's the latest guy? What's his name?
Oh, it's Henry Cavill.
Henry
Cavill, I think. Yeah.
And I say, "No, I met Superman."
The drawing is the real deal. Yeah,
the drawing is the real Superman, not the human beings, the paid actors who are portraying him. So here's what happened. And this is more than you're bargaining for, but I think it'll play right into to the geekosphere that you address for every one of these shows. So here's what happened. I said, how old is Superman? And he said, "Well, he's eternally in his late 20s. I said, "Okay. I could probably find a star that's 20-something light years away. And we can just declare that star to have been the star that he came from. Whatever we name that star is irrelevant. It's what they named it in their hometown, Krypton."
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So they said, "Cool." And then I said, "Okay, so let me find a star that's red."
I was just going to say, did you go to the trouble of finding a red giant?
Of course. Who do you think you're talking to?
Of course.
Excuse me. Back up if we're going to have a geek off here.
Yeah, okay? Of course. Yeah.
Okay. So I found a red star that was 27 light years away. And it was in the southern hemisphere in the constellation Corvus, the Crow. Okay. So I would later learn, because I had not remembered, that was an especially good choice because the mascot for Smallville High is the crow. Okay. That was inside, that was deeper than I knew for what's going on there. So then I told him, all right, very important. As we all know, Superman was launched Moses style and arrived on Earth not having aged at all. Because when you're an infant, if you age a month, you know the difference. Okay. So basically, the baby didn't age. So I said only one of two things could have happened.
He's traveling at the speed of light.
He's launched at the speed of light, so he doesn't age. But if he's launched at the speed of light, then he's coming with the light wave.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Of the destroyed planet. So he doesn't get to see them later.
So it's got to be a wormhole, right?
So it can't be the speed of light. He's got to come through a wormhole.
All right.
Because you come through a wormhole, you get here instantly.
Yeah.
The baby doesn't age, and the light still has to catch up. So I explained all this to the storyteller, to the DC Comics folks, and they said, "Okay, cool." So they folded that in. They folded it into the dialogue, and I think we mentioned wormhole and that it's 27 light years away. And another thing I said to them, I said, and they said, "Oh, we need image references for the." I said, "Sure." So I gave them a picture of myself, and then I said, "By the way, if it makes no difference to you, could you take off a few pounds in my midsection?" And they said, "Dr. Tyson, this is the world of the comic. Everybody looks good." So I said, "Okay, great." And so there it is. It became part of the Superman canon.
Yeah, takes you back to the wrestling years with that drawing, right? When you used to wrestle.
You've seen that. Okay. Oh, by the way, whoever hasn't seen it, I used to be captain of my high school's wrestling team, but I was a total geek nerd.
Yeah.
Okay, geek nerd jock, and I we all as kids, especially back then as little boys, we always fantasize about being a superhero. That's how old I am, when little boys would think that way.
Yeah.
And the superhero I wanted to be was defender of the nerds. Okay. Because back then nerds were so abused.
Yeah.
The jocks and everybody else hadn't yet figured out that one day they'd be necessary to help them with their computers. So
I know
nerds had hardly any street value. At the time.
I've always said that I'm not the useful kind of nerd. I can't point to the right constellation. I can't fix your computer. I just know what Superman looks like.
That's fine, but you're part of the community. Yeah. Okay, so so I wanted to be the protector of that, and so there'd be some bat signal equivalent, like digits of pi up in the clouds.
And then the symbol of pi, I love it.
Yeah, and then there'd be some football jock pummeling a skinny nerd, and I just go kick his ass, right?
Yeah. I love it.
What are superheroes if not people who protect those who otherwise have no one to either speak for them or to defend them in societal encounters? So that's what I imagined as a little kid.
Well, I think that DC Comics has got a spinoff on their hands if they want to make that a reality.
Nerd man.
Yeah, I mean, you're already part of canon, so you might as well be your own superhero. So, the interview started before I even officially introduced anything. Not that you need any introduction, but might as well dot our I's and cross our T's. That it's Al Beck here with the Nerd Radio Podcast and the Dave and Chuck the Freak Show, having the pleasure to speak with Neil deGrasse Tyson. And the main reason that we are talking today is that you've got an event coming up at the Fillmore Detroit, doing a little bit of a tour here. Now, I don't know if you realize this or not, but the date you're going to be at the Fillmore, Friday, April the 8th, is also Tiger's opening day right across the street.
Is that right?
Yeah. That's
across the street. Okay.
Yeah, so the Fillmore is on Woodward, and then across the street
is a day game or a night game?
It's a day game. It's a 1:00 game.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So I'm not competing with.
No. And it's a party all morning long. So it's just funny. I looked at the date and I had to cross-reference with the Tigers schedule. It's going to be, I think our morning show is actually going to be broadcasting down there the same day that you'll be speaking there. But very cool. So it's going to be a very, very
happy to be in the hood.
Yes,
as we say.
Very exciting, busy day in Detroit. But what is something that you're like? What can people expect from this engagement at the Fillmore? What are you doing on your speaking tour?
Well, first, I'm not unaware of how odd it is that a person might be spending, what, did that land on a Friday? When is that?
Yes,
is that
yes.
Right? Spending a Friday evening in a theater listening to an astrophysicist. I'm completely self-aware how odd that is. All right, so I don't want you to think that I'm delusional or anything. The topic that night is called cosmic collisions, and the way this works is I don't foist myself on cities. The town and the local theaters, they request my visit, and then I hand them a list of topics that I can talk about, and then they pick. So I'm not trying to sell you anything. I mean, in other words, it's, yes, of course I've written books, and there's always a book one could buy that I happen to have written.
Yeah.
But I'm not on a book tour in that sense, right? And even if there is a book available for sale, that's not the point. The talk is not about the book. And it's about what the theater organizers, and if I've been there before, they'll look at the list of other topics I've spoken on, and then they'll increment that to some next one in the list or jump around. So cosmic collisions is an extraordinary subject, given the kinds of stuff that goes bump in the night. So we've got, so consider just simple things like asteroids hitting Earth. All right. Yes, those count as cosmic collision.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't look up.
The fact that if you looked at the moon lately, how many craters are on it?
Yeah.
That sucker's been hit. All right. So it's I don't want to call it a celebration of, because some of these collisions are deadly and destructive.
Well, the moon itself was a result of a massive cosmic collision.
Was a result of a cosmic impact. Correct. And I think we even named the object that no longer exists that collided with Earth to make the moon. But just in case people don't know, but I know you have science-hungry folks out there.
Of course.
What led us to this hypothesis is that the moon has hardly any iron in it. It is made of mostly just rocks, okay? And where are most of the rocks on Earth? They're in our crust. And if you're going to make something in the solar system from its birth cloud, the size of the moon, it will have all the same ingredients that Earth does. And it'll have an iron core, the way Earth does. But it doesn't. So how do you make something that large that has no iron? You have to make it from pre-sifted materials. So the protoplanet that collided with Earth, it was not a head-on collision. It was a side-swiping collision that basically swept up all manner of Earth's crust into a ring around Earth. We would have gone a while with Earth having a ring, kind of like Saturn.
Sure.
And that material would have then coalesced out of, again, this pre-sifted material to make the moon. And then the moon has been spiraling away from us ever since, for other reasons, tidal forces and things. So collisions there. Not only that, we have black holes colliding. Oh my gosh!
Oh man, that's a scary thought.
That? So we've measured the collision of black holes in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago. This happened, and so we.
Nice reference. I like that.
Thank you. I try to stay in the tone and in the mood. So the whole presentation. It's video, it's audio, we have video and audio of the Chelyabinsk collision. This is an asteroid that exploded over Chelyabinsk in Russia. I think it's just outside of Siberia.
Right, I remember that.
1,600 people were injured. Nobody died. But this was, if you want to talk about a shot across our bow, it's like, we live in a shooting gallery. This time, I'm not going to kill anybody. Next time, watch out. All right.
Yeah.
Is this enough warning to put in a defense system, or are we waking up to this problem? All right. And so we have video footage of that asteroid, was a meteor exploding, and security cam footage of the shockwave blasting out windows. I mean, so all of this is in the talk. And so what I like doing as an educator is not talk about objects, because then it's like it's not like a tour of objects, because the physics of things cross-cuts everything. And when you cross-cut, you come away understanding a concept and a principle that you can apply even to things you have yet to see. You become intellectually empowered to think about the problem rather than just remember certain details about one object versus another. So when I group all of this together, collisions, you're going to come away and you'll never see the solar system or the universe the same way again the next time you look up.
Yeah, and don't look up is
don't get me started. Well, that documentary, yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I saw a video you had posted recently where you referenced that movie on Netflix and saying it's a documentary, and it's terrifying.
Everything I know about the media, about social media, broadcast media, cable news, people's reaction, politics, everything I know about it tells me that was a documentary.
Yeah, which is really scary. And like you said, that explosion near Siberia should have been a wake-up call, and you would hope it is. You know, you see those shooting stars, you make a wish. That wish is like, may all of them miss us like that or just graze the atmosphere.
I bet no one has ever wished that.
Yeah, I'm going to.
I wish that those are never bigger than what I see now.
Exactly.
Can I tell you something? This is something I figured out, a scary moment. So this is some years ago. In fact, 1999. That's how old I am. I'm on the Brooklyn Bridge. I live in New York City. At 2 a.m, I'm watching the Leonid meteor shower, which that year was especially intense. Mm-hmm. There was like 100 meteors an hour, so more than one a minute. Typically, you get one every 5 minutes or so, and you're happy with if you get that. This was coming good. And so I'm looking up, and then I see a star appear just out of nowhere. It got brighter and brighter and brighter. Then it disappeared. And so I quickly said, well, what am I looking at? Why? What? Mm-hmm. I don't know how long it took me to deduce what I just witnessed, but holy shit. Okay, excuse me.
No, you're fine. We're taped.
I saw what that was a meteor headed straight for me.
Oh my God.
Because you think of meteors as streaks, right?
Yeah.
Well, if they're streaking, they're not headed towards you, they're headed to somebody else.
Exactly,
okay?
Yeah.
If I see a light go from nothing to bright and then disappear again in a puff of smoke, oh my gosh. Then I realized that's what it would look like when it's headed straight for me. That's the end of the world for Neil deGrasse Tyson. Will be a light that just gets bigger and brighter. Oh, look how beautiful that is. Oh, boom, splat. There it is.
Oh, that's a horrifying thing to keep you awake at night, I think.
Yes, it did. It kept me awake that night. I'll tell you that.
Well, I know we don't have a lot of time, so there's a couple of things just in space I wanted to ask you about, like, for example, the new James Webb Space Telescope that's, been in the news lately. So I know you're a big fan of the Hubble Space Telescope and you get a lot of your research from that. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about what we hope to learn from the James Webb Space Telescope?
Yeah, so to appreciate what it's going to do, I have to give you a slight backstory on it. So, as you may know, we live in an expanding universe, and the farther away an object is, the more its light en route to us has been stretched to become longer and longer wavelengths. We call that redshift. Even if it's shifting from infrared to microwaves, okay, that technically is away from the red part of the visible spectrum. But if your wavelengths are getting bigger, we just call that a redshift. All right. We do not have any telescopes tuned to observe the birth of galaxies. That is the earliest moment in the universe where anything is visible, any objects are visible, because that's when they're being born. All right. Well, what do birthing galaxies look like? They emit copious amounts of ultraviolet light. Very hot stars are rich in this part of the spectrum. Well, you don't build an ultraviolet light telescope to see them because it had to travel for 13 billion years to get us in an expanding universe. Yeah. By the time it arrives here, it's infrared light, not ultraviolet. So the James Webb Space Telescope is exquisitely tuned to see the highly redshifted light from newly born galaxies in the early universe. That's why it's a different kind of telescope. And it turns out when you're sensitive to that part of the infrared, you can see deep into gas clouds that ordinary visible light cannot penetrate. For the same reason you have fog lights on your car. Okay, sure. If you use your regular brights, you're just illuminating the fog. You get a really good view of the fog. But the fog lights themselves are amber, reddish amber. That's a longer wavelength of light that can penetrate completely. And if you used infrared, you could drive 60 miles an hour in total fog blackout because you'd have full view through the fog itself. In astrophysics, we exploit this fact. And so we can use the James Webb Space Telescope to see deep into gas clouds and observe the very formation of stars and planets themselves. So curiously, it is beautifully designed to see the earliest moments of the universe and the freshly born stars within our own galaxy. And because it's an infrared, you don't want it to ever even think about the sun, because the sun's will blot out your very sensitive infrared measurements. So we're putting it at one of the Lagrangian points, the Earth-Sun Lagrangian point, 1 million miles opposite the sun. Okay, so 1 million miles beyond the moon orbits the Earth, but it's in exact line with the sun, and it has sun shields. So these sun shields will not only block the sun, but also Earth, because Earth is a noisy place, and so there it will reside in total peace and quiet.
We hope.
In infrared silence, so that it can drink in the rest of the universe.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so that's what we're looking forward to. And it was launched Christmas Day, and just coincidence, it's not like the Christian religious people there.
Yeah.
It happened to be the launch opportunity. It was like 7 a.m. or so Eastern time. And so we expect first light, which is this beautifully poetic way to say the first time they open all the shutters and take the first data. First light, I forgot, it might be in May. I forgot when, but around 6 months after launch date. And so we're all looking forward to this. That's my sorry it took so long to explain.
I am perfectly happy with that answer. I'm just afraid of taking up too much of your time today. So there was one more thing, because I am already over my time, and it's not every day that I get to speak to an astrophysicist. So I wanted to get your opinion on a conversation I've had with some friends of mine, sort of doing the what if thing, talking about time travel. And so for the question, we have to suspend a little bit of disbelief. Like, we have to suppose that we have discovered a way to move backward through time. So we've got some sort of ship that's got a tachyon engine in it or something, right? So the thing that I've always had this opinion of is that you couldn't possibly travel back in time, because everything is moving all of the time. We're rotating on our axis, orbiting the sun, the solar system's orbiting the Milky Way, the galaxies are all pulling against each other. So I'm occupying a different quadrant of space now than when I started asking this question 40 minutes ago. So I was wondering what your opinion is on that. If you could travel back in time, would you travel there and nothing be there? Or because it's space-time, not space and time, would you automatically travel through space as well? And that was a mouthful, so I hope you followed it.
No, yeah, of course. Okay, so a couple of things. First, that you're thinking about it exactly the way you need to and you should. And the answer to that question, the response to that question, I don't want to call it an answer.
Sure, yeah.
Because that implies it's a known thing. But my reaction to that would not make a difference between you traveling backwards in time or forwards in time. Okay, so let's take, for example, the flux capacitors, the DeLorean in Back to the Future. So there he is in the mall, and in Back to the Future 1, he's in the mall, and he goes back in time to 1955. The movie was filmed and took place in 1985. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what month and day he's at the mall compared with the month and day that he arrives. And I think it might have been the same day, because he just went back 30 years and didn't change day. So it would work for him. Yeah. But it otherwise wouldn't work. Let's say if he goes back, if it's September for him, and he goes back 30 years to the month of March. Okay? Well, if he does that, he ends up in the vacuum of space because Earth is on the other side of the sun.
Right.
Any time machine, if you're going to talk about a time machine on Earth, has to be a space-time machine. Because you are absolutely right. Everything is in motion. And you can't just isolate the time coordinate and believe you're still going to be where you are 6 months from now. You have to move in a space-time coordinate system to to quote, stay in your room, because your room is now in a different place, carried along by the orbit of the Earth and the orbit of the sun around the center of the galaxy, and by the falling of our galaxy towards the Andromeda galaxy, right? All that's happening.
Yeah.
And you would need to be considerate of this going either forward in time or backwards.
And I don't even know if we have access to all the information to make those calculations. I mean, things like dark matter. I mean, that's a theoretical thing, but like it's. Would you think we
sure. So, but if you have records of where Earth was at a given time, you just true, look, dude, you built a time machine. The rest of this would be easy.
Touche.
I don't think we'll have the record.
And that's the Tyson bitch slap right there. I put me in my place.
Thank you. Received as it was intended.
And I can't.
But also, a couple of my favorite things. I don't know if you remember during the Science March back in 2017, I guess it was. But by the way, one of the posters someone had was, you should really worry about the world when people have to march in defense of science.
Yes, that's true.
That was one poster that I thought was nicely timed. But another one was the people were chanting, what do we want? A time machine. When do we want it? It doesn't matter.
I love that.
But not only that, was it at Caltech? Some group of people had a time travel convention where they made it very public that if anyone in the future invents a time machine, they have instructions to come back and show up at that convention.
Yeah. And didn't
at the time that they established. So they all created the circle or something, and they just waited, and the time arrived and nobody showed up.
Stephen Hawking had a birthday party that he invited time travelers to. I believe.
And no one showed up. Yeah. So there must be some rule against it. Stephen Hawking suggested that a time travel conjecture that you must not. It's probably such that we will one day discover that you cannot travel backwards in time, even if relativity allows you to go forward in time. And I would say that I'm going to take the H.G. Wells tack on this. If we do imagine tachyons, and I can send a text to you via tachyons, let's say, okay? So here's how I imagine it. And I'm just making this up. It's plausible, and it would make a good movie scene. So you're walking down a corridor, and you slip on a banana peel and fall, okay? And say, you're my friend. I don't want you injured. I know this happened to you, and I invent tachyon texting. So
thank you.
Say, I don't want my friend to slip on a banana peel, so I text you. I go into tachyon mode. Okay, so the smartphone is glowing now, right? And I say,
it's gone nuclear.
Watch out for the banana peel. Okay. And then the text gets to you before you step on the banana peel. But what happens? You get a text.
And I'm texting and walking.
You pick up the phone to read the text and you slip on the banana peel because you weren't looking where you were walking.
Thanks a lot, Neil.
Right? So it may be that all of these events are preordained, no matter how much influence you try to have on them, because the very act of trying to influence them is what caused it to happen in the first place.
Well, that's a wonderful answer to my friendly debate. So I have already taken more of your time than I had allotted.
To chat with you.
It was wonderful. And the last thing I want to say as we part ways is that I am somebody who really enjoys learning, but I don't learn in the traditional sense of read these chapters, go take this test. That's just not how I learn. I learn through entertainment, and I learn through hands-on stuff. And I will say that I like to interview people that I look up to in some way, and you have been one of my great teachers of physics, and I look forward to being a continued member of your class moving forward. So, well,
thank you. That's very, very sweet of you and kind, and I'd be delighted if you came to the talk. Unless you're like too wiped out for having gone to the Tigers game. If I don't see you in the audience, I'll know why.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I would love to be at that talk, which is Cosmic Collisions, coming up Friday, April the 8th at the Fillmore, Detroit, same day as Tigers opening day. Neil deGrasse Tyson in person, and thank you.
I gotta say, I think this is really stupid to say this. And I know in advance it's completely stupid, dad joke stupid, but I think the Chicago Bears should move to Detroit.
The Lions, Tigers, and Bears.
The Lions and Tigers and Bears. You see? That would be the joint. Okay.
Of course it would. I know we've got that little entertainment district now. The Comerica Park is right across from where you're going to be. Right up the road is Little Caesars Arena, where the Red Wings and the Pistons play. So it's all right there now. You're right next to the.
Yeah, I forgot it's no longer Tiger Stadium. That's right.
Correct. Yeah, and that's a different location.
Ford Field. The last few.
The Ford Field with the Lions is just on the other side of Comerica Park, so it's all right there.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I look forward to coming by. It's next week.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it as well. So, hope to be in attendance. And thank you so much for taking time to speak to me. It was an absolute delight.
Excellent.